Aaron Rodgers is back at practice for the New York Jets. But are the Jets being reckless by letting Rodgers come back? We're going to talk about that and more on a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Let's roll.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. It is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. It is Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and it is presented by PrizePicks as well. Make sure to go to your favorite team's Crossover Thursday and get some behind the enemy lines information about the upcoming matchup this weekend. We got a lot of matchups this weekend to talk about as well. We're going to talk about the Cowboys on Thursday Night Football, big game tonight. Can Dak Prescott actually win the MVP? Also going to talk about the best games of the week. But before we dive into all that, we got to talk about Aaron Rodgers returning to New York Jets practice. The New York Jets have officially opened up Rodgers' 21-day practice window off injured reserve. Alex, I'm not going to lie to you, and I'm Tyler Rowland, host of Locked On Titans, local expert over there with Alex Clancy, local expert and host of Locked On Cardinals. I got to tell you, I got to take Alex, and I'm just going to lay it on you and get your reaction here. I think the Jets are being incredibly reckless here. That's one option that this could be. I think with the state of their offensive line, the injuries they've had up front, their situation in the standings right now in the AFC, I think it would be some time before Rodgers actually got back on the field. They may lose some more games. I think with where the Jets are now, bringing Rodgers back for 3 or 4 games at the end of the season just for good spirits would be wild for the Jets to do and risk further injury to a guy who's already an older player who's nearing the end of his career. I think that the Jets are being incredibly reckless by even allowing Rodgers to think about coming back. Now, look, the Jets could be playing the game and saying the right things, and then Aaron Rodgers eventually doesn't come back, and they don't bring him back off injured reserve, and he doesn't actually play in the games, and they play it safe and smart. That's still a possibility. But right now, they're maybe, and this is the other option of what could be going on right now, other than the Jets being reckless, maybe the Jets are just bowing to Aaron Rodgers so much that they're playing this game, even though they know, and all the executives and the GM and the coach are like, okay, we can't really let this guy come back and play, right? We can't do that. So maybe the Jets are just playing the game and, hey, Aaron Rodgers, yeah, maybe he's coming back. We're putting him in practice and all that to make Aaron Rodgers feel better. And they know, and they're not going to do it. But if it's the other way, if they're literally going to let Aaron Rodgers do that, either they're incredibly reckless or they're just bowing to Aaron Rodgers in a way where Aaron Rodgers' pursuit of being a marvel and coming back from an Achilles injury is more important than the long-term betterment of the team. Like, they're bowing to him so much and giving him so much control that they're going to allow him to make this reckless decision on his own. And he's the one in control here. Either way, I think it's crazy to entertain. And I'm hopeful for Jets fans that they don't actually do that and that Aaron Rodgers sits the rest of the season, gets ready for next year. The Jets obviously don't look like a playoff team right now. And they get a good draft pick, maybe an offensive lineman to protect Aaron Rodgers. But either way, I just had to lay it out here that I think the Jets are either being incredibly reckless or being naive and letting Aaron Rodgers have way too much control and wanting to do something for himself more than what's best for the team.
Before answering the exact question, and this is something that's rare because, I'm not somebody who searches for reasons to not like a player's personality, not like a way a player conducts themselves, namely quarterback, etc. But on the flip side here, Aaron Rodgers has done a valiant job since getting hurt being a real team player. And it's something that he didn't have to. He didn't have to. Him being on the sidelines, him coaching up Zach Wilson, I still think it's under the guise that Zach Wilson's never been a threat to him, so it's easy for somebody to coach somebody up who's never a threat and look like a good teammate, which is kind of,
True.
the MO that Aaron Rodgers probably, he didn't do much with Jordan Love after they drafted him in Green Bay, so somebody like this doesn't change. He's making millions of dollars to go on Pat McAfee's show, spewing whatever he spews, one side or the other, doesn't matter. That's not what this is about. He is going to be him. So I think this is 100% Aaron Rodgers finally showing his stripes like, oh yeah, I'm still the egomaniac that everybody knows and despises. And I want to play football because I want to look like the hero. Now, on the side of that, of course they're giving him the keys to the East Rutherford Castle. Of course they are. They brought him in. Right. Him taking that $50 million or whatever $1 million pay cut, that money he was never going to make anyways. So let's relax. He didn't give away $70 million guaranteed money. Okay? So him being like Robin Hood, it's like he robbed a bank and then gave some back. It's not like, he went and raised this money and gave it back. Okay? This year, yeah, it'd be asinine. But so are the Jets. So, I don't know exactly what the end game is here. I will give you this because I've been doing this a lot with the Cardinals because, you can't help but draft board watch for the next season. There are 12 teams in the NFL. The Jets are 4-7. There are 12 teams in the NFL with 4 or 5 wins through 12 weeks. 4 or 5 wins. So one win. They're playing Atlanta this weekend. Aaron Rodgers ain't going to play. But say they beat the Jets, they could go from the 8th pick to the 16th pick really quickly. And if you look at their schedule, and before we pivot to Aaron Rodgers again, they play the Falcons, they play the Jets at home, they play the Dolphins on the road, they play the Commanders at home, they play the Browns on the road, and then they finish with the Patriots on the road in Week 18. That Week 18 matchup could be for the 3rd overall pick. So if you have Aaron Rodgers coming back, they're not going to win games, and you risk him getting hurt again. Right,
you're putting him in more danger because the team is so bad.
Right. Well, the one thing, Tyler, that they did this year successfully, they proved that their defense is a top 5 defense in the league. That's something
the
they proved without the shadow of a doubt with young players, Quinn Williams, Sauce Gardner, whoever the other corner is, his name always escapes me. CJ Mosley's come back from the dead, seemingly. They've got a good defense. And then the Johnson kid, they've got a good defense. And all they need is a healthy, able-bodied quarterback behind a good offensive line, and you draft an offensive lineman in the top 10, Aaron Rodgers comes back next year, they're a playoff contending team immediately.
Right. Well, that's my point. It's not the downside of this is he gets hurt again, whatever experimental situation they did to get him to be able to play this quick after an Achilles tear doesn't work, and then you're screwed next year too, and now you've lost 2 seasons paying this guy money. And I just think it would be reckless of the organization to allow him to do this. And the only explanation for that would be that they've just given him the keys, like you said, to the castle in such a way that they have to do whatever he says. And either way, reckless behavior. So I'm hoping that what this is just, for positive vibes, let Rodgers feel good about his recovery, and that they don't literally put him out there behind that offensive line and try to salvage this season. With the record that they have. So I just think that would be crazy.
The only thing that needs to happen is for the Jets not to do the exact thing that they always do, which is the wrong thing. That's the only thing that needs to not happen.
Yeah.
The history of time since Hollywood Joe, they've done the wrong thing when they shouldn't.
Yeah.
And that's just what it's been. And there's been bad luck. I feel bad for Jets fans. Obviously you want to watch Aaron Rodgers play 18 weeks. I wanted to play Aaron Rodgers. I wanted, that would have been fun with him and Garrett Wilson and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't happen.
Football
and
fans
now how they react to it is going to change the future of this organization for better or for worse. So I guess we'll find out in the next month.
Yep, 100%. But with that being said, we are going to talk about the Thursday night football matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. Can Dak Prescott win the MVP? We're going to dive into that in just a moment. Before we get into it, though,
this episode of Locked On NFL Thursday is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the fastest and most fun way to win up to 25 times your cheese during the football season. All you do is pick 2 or more players and pick more or less in their projected stat. and you can win up to 25 times your cheese, man. Like, the cool part about this, because the NBA's here and Tyler and I are both massive NBA fans, is you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. So, for example, like you take LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions. It's badass. It's super fun. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks a number one choice in daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100.
All right, football fans, we're going to continue a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. We talked about Aaron Rodgers potentially coming back for the Jets and how wild of a decision that would be. But we got a Thursday night football matchup here between 2 pretty good teams. We got the Seattle Seahawks against the Dallas Cowboys. Good Thursday night matchup. Going to dive into it. Going to talk about Dak Prescott, who's having an absolutely fantastic year. He's got a chance to win the MVP this season. Before we get into all of that, though, do want to remind you guys that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here, and it's 24/7 covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts from Locked On, like me and Alex. And plus, we got national coverage like you're getting right here from Locked On NFL. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Be a part of history with Locked On Sports Today. Alex, the Cowboys are 8-3. The Seahawks are 6-5. The Seahawks may be coming back down to earth a little bit after a good start. The Cowboys kind of up and down. Want to see them do better against better teams, but still very impressive. A lot of the weeks of the season this year, led by Dak Prescott. I'm guessing that in Dallas, you're expecting the Cowboys to win this game, or do you see an upset happening?
I mean, this offense finally seems to be unlocked. And it's funny, one of the main changes there was Kellen Moore's not there anymore. It's interesting. Dak has embraced the no Zeke role very well. CeeDee Lamb is finally looking like the bona fide wide receiver one that grown to expect from him. Their bevy of tight ends, Jake Ferguson, namely, Tony Pollard hasn't really played that well numbers-wise this year. They haven't done a whole bunch of running the football, pounding the rock like they had with Zeke over the last handful of seasons. We just need to see Dak do it. And the only thing that needs to happen is exactly what hasn't happened his entire career. It's the same thing as the Jets. It's like, we need to see him do it when the lights are brightest. And every game for the rest of the season, we will see that with the lights brightest. And, here's the thing, dude. He's a guy that even though we got that massive contract, he's a guy you root for. Cowboys fans are tough. Like, Cowboys fans they're tough. And they
expect a lot. They've seen greatness for most of their lives,
Well, and we're going to find out. And this is the last thing I'll say here. They go Seahawks, Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions. The next 5 weeks. We're going to know. If they go 4-1 and they beat the Eagles, because that's always a barn burner.
That's the game right there, dude. That's the game. They play December the 10th, I think. So it's about 20 days from where we're at right now, about 3 weeks. If Dak goes in and wins that game against the Eagles and finds a way to get the number 1 seed or win the division away from the Eagles, and he's, like you said, they've rushed for 1,200 yards this year. It's not like they're pounding people on the ground like they used to. Like, Dak is throwing the rock. Mike McCarthy's got him looking like Aaron Rodgers back in the Packers prime days. You know what I mean? Like, that's the potential. And Mike McCarthy's been kind of a punchline a lot of the time. And you get why he got let go at Green Bay and why things have gone the way they have. But it's not like he just all of a sudden went from a Super Bowl winning coach that designed an offense to a moron. There was something there. And maybe if he's found a second career win here and he's been inspired and is getting more creative and took back that job, maybe he can lead Dak Prescott to those sort of accolades and that sort of potential. So Dallas really has a chance here, I think. And you pointing out the schedule, that's elite right there. That is Alex Clancy doing big stuff in the clutch, because that is a perfect example of he can take the path in big games that people are paying attention to. And with the way that they're winning games this year, if he pulls those out as the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, which is already going to have a little bit, they talk about tax, like certain things have tax to them.
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys quarterback, they're getting the tax money on one of those. Dallas Cowboys quarterback's always going to get a little elevated because of the brand. So I just think he's got a good chance. And actually, as we were discussing before, he's third right now, highest MVP odds on FanDuel at plus 600. Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes are ahead of him. So I guess the question is, do you think those are good odds? And do you think it would be worth putting a little cheese on Dak Prescott here, knowing the schedule information that you just kind of outlined?
Yeah, because if they go 4-1, he's going to win it. Like there's like a clear path to it. Like Jalen Hurts has played fine this year. They've had,
huh? He would have to beat Hurts on the way. So
yeah, right. So this is kind of and he plays all of the quarterbacks that are, in the it's Jalen Hurts has played okay. His numbers weren't great in their last come from behind win.
Right.
There is a shelf life to come from behind wins like that. And you know what? They've got the best roster in football, 1-53. There's no reason why they should be struggling in games like they are. I don't know if there's not something wrong there by any stretch. They've powered through the malaise of losing a Super Bowl. They're 10-1. Like, they're checking all the boxes.
Right.
Okay. And check out Gino and Louis DiBiase. They do a great job with Locked On Eagles. But Dak, look at this. Yes, I would put cheese down, but you look at this. So the Seahawks, they haven't been they may turn into the proverbial pumpkin here pretty quickly. Okay, they've lost two games in a row, 2 divisional games. They almost lost to Washington.
Well, the offensive line is banged up, and Geno Smith is struggling because of it. The passing game can't get consistency. Kenny Walker's out now. I mean, they're just having some troubles there.
Right. So each team that they play for the rest of the year has the door ajar. They've shown their weakness so far this year. The Seahawks, the Eagles definitely have. The Bills, they go on the road to play the Bills. The Dolphins can't beat good teams. And the Lions have put up 2 absolute bona fide stink-a-lot-of-puss this year against good teams. So, and then they play Washington in Week 18. Who knows if Sam Howell could hug it? Who knows? But Dak has a path. It's in his control. If they go 4-1 and they have to beat the Eagles as one of them in the next 5 games, he wins the MVP. I don't think it should be close.
Yeah. He's it's going to be a difficult path, but because of the difficulty of the path, it elevates his ability to win it. You know what I mean? It's like putting a multiplier or a booster on it. Like, he's going to get more credit for each of those wins than maybe the other candidates who are going to be running against him for their wins, especially Mahomes, there's going to be some natural voter fatigue that you see in every sport when a guy's won so much. It's like, it's time to recognize somebody new for how good they are. Hurts is definitely on that path, but Dak has the ability it's like Super Mario Brothers with the little speed boosters. It's like Jalen Hurts is ahead of Dak Prescott right now, but Prescott has some speed boosters that if he's accurate and can hit them, he's got a chance to zip past. But with that reference, we will head forward. It's Thursday, which means it's time to talk about the best games of the week. We're going to dive into the rest of the NFL slate. Before we do, though, I got to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Look, DoorDash always comes through in the clutch, like Alex, for example, whether it be restaurant food, whether it be groceries, whether it be retail, DoorDash is going to deliver. And I mean that literally and figuratively as well. But you've counted on DoorDash before. I know I have. Most of you guys listening have. I got some lunch from DoorDash the other day. I know that my people in Nashville, I always tell them, check out Acme Feed and Seed on DoorDash, one of my favorite restaurants when I go down there. And if you haven't relied on DoorDash before, now is the time, because you can get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Download the DoorDash app, enter the code LOCKED23. That's LOCKED23. Subject to change. Terms apply. Again, don't forget, use the code LOCK23 for 50% off up to a $10 value on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app, spend $15 or more, subject to change. Terms apply. Also, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is America's number one sportsbook, after all. And look, if you haven't got in on the action this NFL season yet, now is the perfect time because new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, again, there's no better time to join than now. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make sure you get in on the action this NFL season. They have spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
NFL. All right, Tyler, it's time. Here's the thing. I don't think I did this last week because it was Thanksgiving. It was a weird week. Appreciate football. Remember when I started saying this when the season started? Yeah, the last 2 months have gone by like that. We are in week 13. Kids, adults, people, week 13, man. Okay, so let's cherish these last 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 6 weeks. It's not 5 weeks. You have to count one. It's not the normal math where you just subtract 18 to 13. There's 6 weeks left. There's so many win-loss record storylines for the rest of the year. It's massive. The entire, half of the league has between 4 and 6 wins. And a chunk of those teams are going to make the playoffs that you think, and then some of them who you thought were going to make the playoffs won't. It's going to be incredible. So let's pivot here, Tyler, to the slate for week 13. Now, unfortunately, we also get to this part of the season. What?
I mean, there's one game. Tyler,
can I give my preface? This is my segment to open up. Okay? Let me do it. A good one. Let me do it. Gosh. There's I wanted to preface this because there aren't very many good games this week. So let me preface it in a nice way. We're going to start to see widening of the spectrum of good games, average games, and then bad games. Because there's a lot of teams towards the tail end of the top 10 for next year that have other things in mind. They have bad rosters, they have injuries, whatever. So you're going to see more lopsided games as we go down the stretch. So with that in mind, Tyler, I will let you give the bell of the ball. But for me, there's a couple. Okay? Texans and Broncos is one for me. Okay. And the reason why is because you and I need to eat our words as of now. I did say when teams were 1-4, I think we did this going into week 6 or week 7, teams that had an outside chance to make a comeback. I did say Denver because Sean Payton and Russell Wilson had done it before. Okay. They're not winning pretty. They're winning ugly. And both of these guys have won ugly very well in the past. Okay, and that's something that they can do. The run game hasn't been great in Denver. The defense is better. Cortland Sutton is a touchdown machine. We don't really know why Denver's winning games. It doesn't really compute. They're not doing anything incredibly well. But Russell Wilson, one of the great things that he's always done is maximize Pater. Every inch of the end zone, he can maximize. It was with Tyler Lockett, and now it's with Cortland Sutton, and they're winning games. And that one, I want to see C.J. Stroud every week. He's must-watch football.
Bounce back, though. He's got to bounce back. They just lost to Jacksonville. They're down to 6-5 now. He threw the 3 interceptions against the Cardinals. He's starting to kind of tread water, not surge forward right now in these last 2 weeks. So can he get back on track at home? The Broncos defense, after early season drubbings, they have kicked it in gear as well. I think that's been a huge factor. They've gotten healthier on defense. They've been better on defense. And I think it's going to be tough for C.J. Stroud, and he could be in for another tough game where he doesn't necessarily light it up like everybody was thinking. But moving forward from that game, though, that is a good one.
Go ahead.
49ers,
Yep.
Eagles,
Yep.
in Philadelphia, 8-3 49ers, 10-1 Eagles. The Eagles just keep on winning. The 49ers had some tough losses, got it back on track. But of course, rematch, NFC Championship, same situation. Can the 49ers get revenge? They're playing a lot better football right now. The Eagles are like winning, but not necessarily playing great all the time. It's not like the best football. It's not like last year. So that's obviously the best game of the week. I can't wait to watch that one. 425 game. Going to be a heavy talking point after that game, I'm sure. That game will be going forward. So that has to be mentioned. But there are other interesting games, and you don't want to spend too much time on that one specific game, right? I get what you were saying originally.
Yeah, there are there's a couple, like a trap game I could see as the Lions going to the Superdome and playing the Saints. There are just things that happen in the Superdome that good teams just forget how to play football. It's the wildest thing. And Jared Goff has shown he's had a proclivity, as it were, over his career to play average teams like their Super Bowl teams levels. And I mean, like Baltimore was an embarrassment. Baltimore's obviously a better team than the Saints, but still in the same light. A team that I said to watch out for a handful of weeks ago, with everybody getting healthy, is Los Angeles Rams. They're making a push. I would not be surprised if they make the playoffs. The offense, and this is obviously predicated upon Cooper Kupp's health, Matthew Stafford's health. Cooper Kupp has had I think he's hit that wall. You and I talked about maybe trading him before the trade deadline. They decided not to. So they're going to
playing the Browns, who are beatable with the quarterback situation, of course.
Right, but that defense is very good. So we'll see. That's kind of a game that it's going to be kind of a litmus test for where the Rams are. And you know what? I think we've got to give Jordan Love his flowers at this point.
That's where I was going next. The Packers and the Chiefs is probably my number 2 game that I would put on there. I think Jordan Love has played very well the last few weeks. If the Packers, I mean, a lot of people are projecting the Packers to make this run now and make the playoffs. So if Jordan Love can keep that up and I think he played pretty well in Kansas City the last time that he played. It was kind of ugly, but it wasn't necessarily all his fault. I think with the Chiefs offense maybe struggling a little bit, Jordan Love could go in there or not go in there. It's at home in Green Bay, which obviously helps the Packers as well. I think the Packers are in a situation here where they could pull an upset over the Chiefs. That's going to be an excellent game to watch Sunday Night Football. I mean, there are some good games in some of these windows, even though there are some games that maybe aren't quite as appealing.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? We're starting to see Jordan Love, like Matt LaFleur's doing a great job. Okay. They don't have any world-beating talent on offense. Aaron Jones is out, I think, for the year after that injury or close to it. A.J. Dillon's never really amassed to what people thought he was going to be second-round pick out of Boston College, I think. Romeo
the
Doubs
offensive line has been banged up.
Yeah, Jaden Reed has been fine.
He's good.
Christian Watson, when he's healthy, is still the best receiver on the team. But you know who they remind me of? And it's pretty to a T here, is the Texans. They've got a good defense. They've got a quarterback. You don't really know what to make of it yet. Him and Jordan Love, you can't really compare apples to apples. Their run game is suspect. They've got a bunch of good young wide receivers with massive upside, and you just need to see it happen. Now, sure, Nico Collins and Tank Dell are ahead of Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs at this point. But like, if you told me that Packers won that game, I wouldn't be surprised now. They have, and this is the stat that's blown everybody's mind. Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love through their first 11 games as a full-time starter, 5-6 record, 2,229 passing yards each. We are living in a simulation. People didn't know about Aaron Rodgers until he was Aaron Rodgers. He was fine in college, but he dropped to the 20s for a reason.
Yep.
Like, what if they found their next one? What an incredible story in sports that would be.
It's funny, too, because just a couple of weeks ago, it was like, oh, Jordan Love's not the guy. The Packers are going to get a top 5 pick. Are they looking at quarterback, blah, 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 in just a couple of weeks. And I wonder that if he doesn't play well for the next couple of weeks, and then what the conversation is then, it's just funny how this all fluctuates. But right now, Jordan Love has been dealing. So I think, Green Bay Packers fans have to be excited. I mean, what else can you be after you see him make some of the throws that he's made over the last month?
And Ty, listen, I mean, ain't no free agent quarterback going there of merit.
Right.
This
That's
isn't
not the path that they can take. Yeah.
It's not. So, it's not Tennessee. It's not Nashville, where it's a great booming city. It's fun to live there. Like, it's not like Arizona. Say what you want about, the Cardinals and having forever, been a lesser than team more times than not. It's Scottsdale. It's Phoenix.
Old people like to go to Arizona.
Well, I'm going to really.
Yeah.
kick you in the nethers for that.
All
But
the
you know
old
what I mean?
quarterbacks,
Like,
they're like, yeah, it's great.
I mean, Tom Brady almost went to Tennessee, so you know it's cool. But like
Yeah.
Green Bay,
I'm with you there. Yeah.
they have no safety net if Jordan Love doesn't work. Aside from drafting another quarterback, they're not going to get a quarterback of merit to take. They're not going to pay a quarterback of merit like they paid Aaron Rodgers. And nobody like Green Bay's tough, man. It's a tough sell.
Yeah, no, you're 100% dead accurate on that. That's why they've had to draft the quarterbacks the way that they have, or make a trade for a quarterback, find somebody off the scrap heap. You know what I mean? That's what they'll have to do, because in the modern day, they're not going to be able to sign a free agent. But with that being said, that is going to do it for a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Talked about Aaron Rodgers' potential return, talked about Dak Prescott and Thursday Night Football, talked about the best games of week 13. Make sure that you're back for a Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast as well. Get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It is Thursday, though, and as I always say, start your weekend early. Stay safe out there.